Welcome back, folks, to #AskGSM. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, where I answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right here in this video forum. We are only 6 days away, people. 6 more days until tables, ladders, and chairs in the TD Garden in Boston, where yours truly will be in attendance. I cannot wait for it. My excitement levels are off the charts. I know the card right now does not look amazing, but I'm hoping it exceeds expectations. And just being there live for any WWE live event, whether it's a Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-view, live event, it doesn't matter. It's always entertaining. It's always a blast, and I look forward to Sunday. So before Sunday, we answer your questions, like I said, from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you want to do so, send in a question. You can find me on the Twitter. Send me a question there with the #AskGSM at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. And last but not least, be sure to leave a comment down below in the comments section. I'll be sure to include your comment in next week's video. Speaking of such, we got a record level number of comments for YouTube questions this week, probably the most we've ever gotten. So we got a ton of questions this week. Kicking it off with YouTube comments, the YouTube questions as always, starting with Hector S. What's your favorite how WWE should have booked / how WWE should book video? And of course, he's talking about the What Culture videos, which I mentioned in last week's edition. Like I said, those are always awesome. Adam from What Culture is a great dude. I follow him on Twitter. He follows me. Really cool guy to talk to, and he has amazing ideas, and he really should be working for creative. All of them are great. It's really hard to pick out one that's better than another because all of them are freaking awesome. But if I had to pick one that was my favorite, I really like the Shield breakup Batista return one that he kind of did a mashup of. I mean, it was funny, too, because that was an idea when I saw that he did. I'm thinking, how could you do that better? Because they did it as great. I thought the Shield breakup was essentially perfect when they did it, how they did it, and it cemented all three guys as main event level players. But he still managed to do it a lot better than they did with the Batista return specifically and booking that better. And I can't remember the exact details of it, but I thought it was great. That one, or one of the more recent ones that he did, where he booked Undertaker's last ride, so to speak, his retirement run, leading to a match with John Cena at WrestleMania, which, again, I thought was amazing. So check out those two videos. I can't pick between the two which one was my favorite, but those are two ones that come to mind that I thought were awesome by Adam from What Culture. Flood King HD, his first question was, what do you think of Randy Orton's long-term injury? It sucks. I mean, 2015, I've always kind of been an Orton fan dating back to like late 08, 2009, but 2015 for me has been the year where I became a Randy Orton fan again, dating back to late last year when he started doing the tweener stuff. And that's kind of what this year has been for him. He's taken some time off here and there to get married and to do his honeymoon and just for injury's sake and out for injury's sake. That's what it is currently, but I became a huge fan of his. In the tweener role, I think he's great. Not as a bland babyface, not as a heel, he's great too, but when he's booked like shit, he's awful. And I thought this year was a great year for his career when he was on TV. So that being said, I'm kind of disappointed that he's going to be out for what it looks like up to a year. Someone else said maybe not until 2017, which is incredible, and not in a good way. I mean, incredible and like I can't believe it. So it really sucks, and a lot of people are saying whether he's going to come back at all. I think he will. He may not take. I mean, even before he got hurt, like I mentioned, he was kind of doing some days off here and there. He was already taking time off every couple of weeks or so. So he might resume that kind of schedule, especially with the shape that his shoulder's in, more so than anything else. I mean, Orton's very injury-prone, but it's more so his shoulder than, you know, like, I don't know, neck issues or anything else. It's almost always the shoulder. 90% of the time when Orton gets hurt, it's always the shoulder. So he has to rehab that more, and I don't know if it's ever... I don't think it's something that's ever going to 100% recover, that he can, you know, recover and rehab for. I'm not exactly sure, but it does suck, especially with the roster depth right now being as low as it's ever been. So I wish him a speedy recovery, but I'm not expecting him back until, like, early 2017. At the earliest, at least mid-next year. I mean, WrestleMania is completely off the table, so I'm hoping he comes back 100%. I don't think he will, but as good as he possibly can be. In his second question, what is your opinion on Vince McMahon stating that he is not worried about the Raw ratings dropping and that the return of top stars like John Cena and Brock Lesnar will save the show? I don't know where you heard that. I'm not saying it's false. I didn't hear those same comments from Vince. I'm sure it's something from like The Observer or whatever. So I'm sure there's some legitimacy to them, but... You know, at Jamie Lee Mack, I think I mentioned him last week in the comments about this last week, about the Raw ratings dropping and everything else. where he mentioned that as long as USA is happy that they're not going to drop them, then they're completely content. I don't believe that's the case. I'm pretty sure Vince is freaking the fuck out over the ratings dropping, because that's really what they base all the entire product on. Like, going back years and years and years, when the ratings would drop slightly, they would change the title, they would change the champion. I honestly do not put an amazing amount of stock in the ratings. I mean, they're obviously important. I don't like to pay attention to them too much, if only because there's nothing that I can really do to help them other than watch myself, which I do every single Monday night. Other than that, there's really not much I can do to help the ratings, so why really worry about them? That's their issue. That's something that they need to fix, and it's a reflection, in my opinion, at the current moment, of the product, how stale it is, how they need invigorating storylines and need to bring people back. Anyway, though, but based off the second part of that question, where you said that Vince McMahon said that the return of top stars like John Cena and Brock Lesnar will save the show, you can't always count on those kind of guys to save the show, to save your product. I mean, those are really the only two guys, maybe with the exception of Kevin Owens, that feels special right now, and the New Day. Other than that, there's really no one that stands out from the rest of the pack. I've said this time and time again, but you have guys like Dolph Ziggler, Sheamus, Roman Reigns, even Dean Ambrose to an extent. All these guys are just at a certain level and aren't above anyone else in the pecking order. They all really blend in. They all win some. They all lose some. No one's really on a roll. They're all just kind of at the same level, which is, they're not bad, but they're not at that superstar level where, I'm not even going to say draw money, because I'm still among the belief, of the belief that WWE is what sells tickets. Not, Hulk Hogan is wrestling tonight, maybe John Cena, but everyone else is. Not just because, Seth Rollins is wrestling tonight, I'm going to go buy a ticket. If it's WWE, we're going. That's the whole family mindset, I believe. So anyway, yeah, you can't really rely on guys like Brock Lesnar and John Cena to save the show, because just when I'm guaranteeing you, just because when John Cena comes back in a couple of weeks, the product will not be saved. I mean, that was the same case a couple years ago in 2013 when the product was absolutely awful. And right afterwards, when Cena came back, they brought him back like a couple months early at Hell in a Cell. The product was still bad. I still didn't give a shit, Brock Lesnar will only do so much because he's only around so much, as he should be. He should not be on every single week. That's what kind of would hinder his mystique, I guess is the word I'm looking for here, if he was on every single week. So that's something I disagree with in having him on every week. So yeah, you can't rely on those kind of guys to save the ratings. That only goes to a certain point too. When they brought back Stone Cold and Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels and all these other old-timers, which is great. I mark out seeing those guys on Raw every once in a while, but that was like their go-to move. Oh, the ratings suck. Let's bring back a bunch of notable names, bring back a bunch of legends. And even they, at this point, do not draw ratings. That rating for that Raw was not good at all a couple weeks ago in late October when they brought them all back. So I think that even that card has been used out. So they really need to start utilizing the guys that they have and creating engaging storylines, and I'm sorry, my phone just dropped, creating engaging storylines, focusing on the wrestling, focusing on the stars of tomorrow, focusing on the future, because if you keep on bringing back these old-timers, that only goes so far before you're back to where you started. At Caleb Keller, I can never pronounce your last name, but he's a great dude though from Twitter. But his YouTube question this week was, do you think Daniel Bryan could return to the Royal Rumble, and even if he can, do you think WWE should wait until the Raw the following night to bring him back so the fans don't shit on whoever wins the Rumble instead of Bryan? Absolutely. Abso-frickin-lutely, Caleb. I cannot agree more that Daniel Bryan should not be brought back until after the Rumble. I would even go so far to say until after WrestleMania. Because the reason I say that is if he's not in a top match at WrestleMania, in which he deserves to be based off his popularity alone, and he's going to be involved in another throwaway ladder match. And I know he won last year, and it was a big moment for him, but he was, he should have been higher up on the card, in my opinion. It was a great WrestleMania. I'm not complaining, but if he's going to be facing fucking Sheamus on the 5th match down on the top of the card at WrestleMania 32, I don't want to see it. I don't really care. So he should just be brought back and saved until the Raw after WrestleMania. But that being said, I don't think that he's ready to go. I don't think that they're saving him for a special moment to bring him back. I don't think that at all. Just because if he was ready to go, they would have brought him back by now because their ratings suck. The product really isn't all that good right now. There's very few superstars who feel special, and they need everyone that they can possibly get. They need as much star power as possible right now. And if they had Daniel Bryan ready to go, they're not waiting until the Rumble. They would have brought him back weeks ago if that was the case. I just don't think they're going to medically clear him. So if they don't medically clear him, he'll just fucking leave. He'll just leave and go wrestle And Northeast Wrestling, he'll go wrestle in the indie scene. It won't matter. He'll just wrestle elsewhere. So regardless, Daniel Bryan, if let's say he was ready to go by the Rumble like last year, he should not be in the Rumble if he's just going to lose again, because people will not let that go. And I think it's a smart decision. Like you said, if he's going to be in the Rumble and not win, then they're going to shit on whoever wins instead. And that's going to suck for that person. Unless it's like a Dean Ambrose, maybe I could see that being the exception. But other than that, or Brock Lesnar, other than that, they should just wait until the Raw after the Rumble, or like I said, go so far as to say wait until the Raw after WrestleMania. Because if he's not going to be top match in the card, which I don't think he will be, which is mind-boggling to me, but it is what it is, then just bring him back after WrestleMania. But like I said, knowing WWE, they'd probably just bring him back ASAP because they need as much star power as they can get right now with the roster being so weak. The first KFC from YouTube, his first question was, should Kevin Owens join the League of Nations? Absolutely not. I don't think so. I could see how it would be a good fit. You have the tag team champions. New Day isn't really technically a part of League of Nations. They are aligned with them. But you have Del Rio in there. You have Sheamus in there. I guess it makes sense to put Owens in there too. And I'm sure that's the route they're going in. I would not be surprised if they made that move tonight on Raw. I just really have no desire of seeing him in the League of Nations. Kevin Owens is the guy who, like I mentioned earlier, is one of the few superstars right now who feels legitimately special. So why ruin that by putting him in the League of Nations? It's not a case of that in being a part of the faction and being part of the group that he would raise them to a different level. I think it's more so the case that if he was aligned with them, they would bring him down more than he would bring them up. Because like I've said last week, and like I said in Wrestle Rant Radio and everything else last week, that I like the idea of a League of Nations stable. I think all those guys have great chemistry. But the bottom line is, they're all losers. The fans have no incentive to cheer for any one of those. And not cheer, no, I know they're heels, but I'm sorry, I should rephrase that. They have no incentive to take any one of these guys seriously because they've all been booked like shit. Even Del Rio is a guy who's been winning more than anyone else in that group, yet he still comes across like a fucking loser because he faces losers and no one gives a shit about him. He's paired with Zeb Coulter. The whole Mexican America thing is total bullshit. I don't care. I think no, absolutely not. Owen should not join the League of Nations. He could get some funny skits out of it, but other than that, he should just be kept alone. He's better as a lone wolf, so to speak, to take the Baron Corbin lineage, verbiage. I think he's just better by himself. His second question, that's a tongue twister, should Samoa Joe win the NXT Championship at the live special? You know what? I would not be against it. If anything, I'd probably be for it, because Balor has had a good reign. I think someone else asked me that, or maybe I was asked that last week. I don't know. But someone asked me about Finn Balor's reign as NXT champion. And I think it's been a good reign. It hasn't lit the world on fire just because he hasn't had many title defenses in the 5 months that he's held the belt. He defended against Owens at the special in August, and then again against Apollo Crews a couple weeks ago on NXT in late October, I think. Other than that, he hasn't had many title defenses, which is fine. And he's a great wrestler. He's over, so it's not like he's had a bad reign. But at the same time, Samoa Joe, I think, makes the most sense. You can have him, you don't have to have him, destroy Balor a la Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens back in February. You don't have to do the same exact thing, but he can cheat to win. He can be the top heel on the promotion because he's amazing right now. I think he's having the best run. Samoa Joe is having the best run of his wrestling career in many years. I'm not going to say of all time, but that would be taking into consideration his runs in TNA with Kurt Angle and such. But at least in many, many years, is Samoa Joe being used right. He's being used properly. He's over as a heel. He knows his character. He's great in the ring. He's having awesome matches. He's on fire right now. So why not put the title on him? That frees up Balor to, get promoted the Raw after WrestleMania. They can continue doing the feud until the next special, which is fine. And then after Balor loses again, you can keep the belt on Joe, and then you can have him feud as Hideo Itami when he comes back, because Samoa Joe debuted on the night that Hideo Itami got taken out, so he can be revealed from a storyline standpoint as the guy who attacked Hideo Itami. Do a feud between those guys. Maybe you give the belt to Itami, and he hits the GTS on Joe, and finally gets that big, awesome moment of finally connecting with that move on a televised show. I'm not talking about the NXT show right before WrestleMania. But I see no reason why not to put the championship on Joe in December, or that is December, in a couple weeks, or next week at the live special. I can't believe it's next Wednesday. I'm so pumped. So pumped. This month is going to be great. We got TLC Sunday. We got NXT TakeOver next Wednesday. Star Wars that Friday. And Christmas the following Friday. Does not get much better than that, people. Anyway, the third question. Are the New Day getting overexposed right now? I can see that argument being made. I think the only reason why they're being as featured as prominently as they are, not as prominently, but as frequently as they are. I mean, they were in the opening segment last week. They were in the tag team match on commentary for Usos versus Lucha Dragons. They were in the main event. They were all over the show, which is too much. I absolutely agree. I love New Day, but that is a little too much. But the only reason they're doing that is because they have no fucking stars. They have no roster depth. They have to fill up the 3 hours somehow. I'm not justifying the move to put them all over the show, but I can understand why they're doing it, because they had at least more than half of the participants in that main event match last week, which was ungodly boring and long for no apparent reason, had already wrestled on the show. They had already wrestled on the show. We'd already seen them in past segments. So therefore, I didn't care. I didn't want to see anyone pull double duty or triple duty in some cases. But anyway, yeah, I can see them definitely being overexposed right now. It's not like I'm getting sick of them. I love New Day. They're one of the few stars, as they mentioned, left in WWE at the moment. But they should not be, all over the show, because it kind of ruins their mystique, their specialness, their uniqueness. So I would just kind of keep them far and few between on the show. At most 2 segments. They don't need to be in 4 or 5 segments throughout the show. Backstage, in the ring, on the mic, on commentary. It's too much. I can see why they're doing it, because they have no fucking stars right now. But they need to hold back on it a little bit, because they're going to ruin the New Day if they keep on featuring them as frequently as they are. Whereas there's other guys that aren't getting TV time at all. They're not even on Raw or SmackDown or whatever. Just give that time to those guys, helping them grow, more promos, or, less talking in the opening segment and more character development. Use that time for that instead of featuring people 5 or 6 times in one night. And Frank Shear 15, also from YouTube. Like I said, a lot of YouTube questions this week, which is awesome. You guys are great. His question was, push, repackage, release John Cena, Randy Orton, and Brock Lesnar. I think I've answered this before, but push Lesnar. I cannot, in any question where I get, push, repackage, release, which are awesome, keep on sending those in. Any question where Brock Lesnar is included, I'm always going to push him, because the guy's a fucking megastar. How can you not push Brock Lesnar? So he's always going to get the push, spoiler alert. And then I would repackage Cena into a heel and release Orton. I love Orton, but Cena, I think, there is a lot more untapped potential with his heel side. When's his baby? I mean, he's been a stale babyface for years, but when he's no longer the guy and they have someone else that can take over for him as the top babyface, the top face of the company, then they can turn him. I think he mentioned that in the Jericho podcast earlier this year. So, yeah, I would repackage Cena, because I think there's a lot more to go. I think he can have a lot. You turn him heel, that opens up a million different doors, a million different opportunities to have him feud with everyone that he's feuded with before, just as a heel. Like, it's 10 times automatically fresh, just immediately fresh again. So I would turn him, repackage him, and get rid of Orton. Like I said, he's kind of near the end of his career anyway. He's getting injured. He's done it all, and I'd be fine with him kind of hanging up his boots if it meant Cena turning heel finally. His second question, where will Tyler Breeze be in 6 months? Superstars at this rate. I mean, I hate to say it. I love Tyler Breeze, but based off the way they've been utilizing him, the guy fucking lost 3 times in a week. He lost on Raw 2 weeks ago. He lost on SmackDown on Thanksgiving. He lost on Raw again to Dolph Ziggler. I know he beat Neville on SmackDown. It was a good match. Like I've said before, though, Neville's a glorified loser. I love Neville, but the guy always loses. So what does a win over Neville mean at this point in time? Anyway, I'm glad he won. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to complain here, but the guy's been booked awful. Very, very lackluster since he arrived in the main roster. Like I know I said right after he arrived, so far so good, but since Survivor Series, it's been very questionable, and they're just making him out to be another guy on the roster. That's what I said. He's kind of just any potential there was for him on the main roster. And like I've said before, they really had to tread lightly with his character, because they can easily fuck it up and become Fandango 2.0, where he's got the great entrance, the flippity-doo-dahs, he's a great wrestler, but because his character is lower mid-card worthy, that they're not going to push him, or the people are just going to take him as a joke. They needed to make him out to be a threat. They need to make people take him seriously, and they failed to do that, and having him lose to Dolph Ziggler a couple times, lose on Raw in tag team matches, and always getting pinned. He looks like a loser. Why would people bother to boo him or take him seriously as a legitimate threat? So 6 months from now, I would not be shocked that in June of 2016, mark my words, that he's on Superstars. That's what happened to Fandango. I think he's better than Fandango, but just based off the way they're booking him, I would not be shocked, because they're just not utilizing him to his full potential and not booking him properly. The 50-50 booking, like we said on Wrestle Rant Radio last week, is bullshit. It gets nobody over. Win some, you lose some. It's like giving every kid a trophy on a Little League baseball team. how do you know who's better than someone else if everyone's always winning? If everyone's winning all the time or everyone's always losing all the time and no one stands out from the rest of the pack, then who's special? You're all in the same freaking lineup here. You're all in the same group that's just coasting. You don't want to coast. You want to get better and you want to exceed. I'm not putting this on the superstars. I'm putting this on fucking creative for having them lose every other match. You know, they win some, they lose some. Who gets over? Who's on a roll? Nobody's on a roll right now. But anyway, that's another rant for another day. So moving forward here to our final YouTube question from Jared Vodel. His question was, who do you think should compete for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania? So if I had to pick, I kind of already made my fantasy WrestleMania lineup with a few matches that have been reported, have been rumored for WrestleMania. So far, I'm thinking we get Reigns and Triple H, which makes the most sense. It would be a good match. They've been building towards it for years now. Not joking, not even joking. They've been building towards it since like fucking early 2014, so the potential's there. They could do that match. I'm totally fine with that. It shouldn't be over the title, though. Roman Reigns and Triple H for the championship does not excite me. The match does, but it doesn't need to be over the title. And then Cena Taker, which has been rumored. I would not rule that out at all, but I would love to see that match. Should it be over the championship? I'd be fine with it. I mean, that'd be cool, I guess. You know, if Taker wins, he gets one more title run before he vacates the next night or whatever. That'd be awesome. I'd be all for that, but the one rumored matchup that I would love to see that would make perfect sense if it was over the championship would be Brock Lesnar and Kevin Owens. Owens does everything for a purpose. He can win the Rumble, and then Brock Lesnar wins the championship from Sheamus at Royal Rumble, and you do that match at WrestleMania. You don't need to turn somebody babyface. You know, Lesnar's already kind of a babyface as it is. Kevin Owens is awesome. People would eat that match up. It would be a great match. And Owens isn't a guy where he's been losing constantly in recent months and people won't take him seriously as a threat to Lesnar like a guy like a Dolph Ziggler or Cesaro. He's been booked pretty well by and large. I know, with the exception of that tap-out loss to John Cena, it was a great match. But let's face it, that tap-out was pointless. And ever since then, it kind of made him feel less special. But he's still great. He still does feel somewhat special. And if they can continue on with his reign of dominance as the Intercontinental Champion, he could drop the belt before then, which is fine. But if he goes on to win the Rumble, which would be amazing, and you have Brock Lesnar win the belt, that's a match that you could do without the championship, but it makes the most sense for the belt because Brock Lesnar wants nothing but that championship back right now after disposing of Undertaker. And then Kevin Owens just wants championship gold. He craves title gold. So why wouldn't he want to win the Rumble and go on to WrestleMania contend for the most prestigious prize in the business? It makes the most sense, so I would do that match over the championship at WrestleMania. I don't think it's going to happen. It's dream booking, but I would love to see it. Mark S. from Facebook, his first question was, how far do you think James Storm could go in NXT? I think he could be a lot like a Samoa Joe type where he can work with younger talent, get a lot of wins. It's not like they're going to make him a loser. But even if they did, you know, he's there to put over talent. Like the Dudley Boys. People say, oh, they've been buried, they're losers. And do they lose a lot in the last couple of weeks? Sure. But at the same time, they're over enough where it's like the John Cena of the tag team division. People will always care about them. They'll always champ for the tables. And they're a great tag team. They're there to put over other teams. I guarantee you if they were squashing every team they were going up against, if they squashed the Wyatt family, they squashed the New Day, then people would be like, oh, why are these old fucks back and now putting over younger talent? I guarantee you there's always something to nitpick with these people when it comes to the burial of talent. I would definitely make a case for the burial of some superstars on the roster, but the Dudley Boys, trust me, are not being buried. I'm sure that's their choice to put over all these different teams right now, which is great. I think that's a perfect position for them to be in right now. As for James Storm, you can give him the NXT Championship. I don't think he's going to make it to Raw or SmackDown. I would love to see it again, but I think he's at the age where they're just bringing him in to, like Samoa Joe said in Table for 3, to add to the buzz of NXT, not to, get promoted to Raw or SmackDown. I would rather see Joe in Raw than James Storm. I love them both, but Samoa Joe I feel like has more potential to succeed in the main roster more so than James Storm, just because of age alone, but also just the talent and stuff. But I think both guys have just been brought into NXT, sadly, to add to the buzz and not be promoted, but I hope I'm wrong in that case. But James Storm, anyway, I think has a lot of potential to do some great things. He's over in NXT right now. He showed in TNA he can be an amazing heel too, so if and when he eventually turns, he can have a great run as a heel. And yeah, I think he can go pretty far, not be like a fucking Ty Dillinger or something, but if they used him properly and They had him, win a few matches, give him a program, don't have him just float around like a Solomon Crow. If you give him a real feud and have him put over a few people while at the same time beating a few talents as well, you can have a really fun run in NXT. I'd be happy to see it once he eventually signs, which I don't think is official yet. I do not think he is officially signed with NXT, but I'm hoping it comes to, that does happen within the near future in the next couple of weeks. So a second question, who do you think is the figurehead of the Divas division on the main roster in WWE? So I don't know if you meant by what you meant by figurehead, maybe like the leader of the Divas division. Right now, I guess it would be Charlotte. She's the champion. Other than that, maybe like Natalya, because she's been there the longest. No, maybe Alicia Fox has been there longer, but I guess behind the scenes, maybe Natalya. But if you mean like leader, I guess Charlotte. I don't know, because she's the champion, so who else would be, leading the division right now? I would say Sasha Banks, and she wins a lot, but at the same time, I feel like they're underutilizing her potential, and they're kind of limiting her in terms of what she could do in the ring. Not what she could do in the ring, but more so what she's capable of by giving her 4-minute matches and not really a real feud. She's just kind of there winning matches. She's not engaged in anything right now. She's not in a feud. So anyway, she's a woman who I feel like can be a cornerstone of the Divas division, the women's division in the years to come. Charlotte too, but given that Charlotte's the champion, she would have to be the, as you mentioned, or as you used, the figurehead of the division right now. And his third question, big fan of Blake and Murphy in NXT. Do you think they have the potential to be a main roster tag team? I think so. Maybe not. I mean, they're a good tag team. It's really hard to say. I could see them getting promoted, but at the same time, they're bland. The only reason they're over is because of Alexa Bliss. She's a great manager, but I'd rather see her on her own, chasing the women's title. She's kind of coming into her own as a wrestler. Blake and Murphy are a good bodyguard. I mean, if they wanted to do that, have Alexa Bliss come to the main roster and have Blake and Murphy be her bodyguards, I'd be fine with that too. I mean, any tag teams that get added to the current tag team wave in WWE on the main roster is a good thing. I don't care if it's the Vaudevillains or Blake and Murphy or, Dash and Dawson, whoever. Any tag team that gets added is a good thing. But at the same time, I don't know if they would get over. Like the Vaudevillains, they have a character, they have a gimmick that I don't think would get over at all. But Blake and Murphy, worse yet, do not even have characters. They're just very good wrestlers. I like Murphy, the Australian guy. Blake is just kind of bland to me, but as a tag team, they're good, but other than the light show of an entrance that they have, there's really nothing special about them, with the exception of Alexa Bliss as their manager. So if they get promoted with her, maybe they would get a chance of getting over. But without her, they're doomed to fail, I promise you, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but they're doomed to fail without Alexa. And his fourth question, what is your opinion about the return of Sami Zayn? Should he stay in NXT or move to the main roster? Super excited to see Sami Zayn back. I think I have his t-shirt right here. I'll show you the newer one. I love this t-shirt. I'll be wearing this on TakeOver London at RJ's place when we watch it. Sami Zayn, baby. Love this t-shirt. And I'm hoping he's going to be at the show. It looks like he will be. He's already said that he's going to be in the on the UK tour, so it makes sense. I mean, it looks like he's coming back to NXT based off the vignettes, but I would just bring him to the main roster. From what I heard, the plan was for him to become a main roster exclusive guy like Kevin Owens when he had that match against John Cena, and then right after that match with Owens at TakeOver, right after the match with Cena, in early May, that he was going to become a main roster guy. And that didn't happen, of course, because he got hurt. So, and other than that, really, what is there for him to do in NXT? Maybe to win back the belt. I wouldn't turn him heel, and you already have enough baby faces, so I don't know what you would do with him. Maybe, like I said, if Joe won the belt, maybe you could do Joe and Zayn. But at the same time, I feel like he's past that point. He's been in NXT for like 3 years at this point. Just bring him up to Raw. Like, he's over enough. He had a great, I know it was in his hometown, but he got a great reaction on Raw when he made that lone appearance in early May against John Cena. Had a very good match. So, yeah, I just moved him to Raw. I would just move him to the main roster exclusively and have him beat Owens for that Intercontinental Championship. If they do Owens and Lesnar at WrestleMania, I would have him drop it to Zayn before then. But if that's not the plan, they could do Zayn and Owens at WrestleMania for the IC title, where Owens can finally drop the belt to Zayn and give Zayn his long-awaited win over his former friend. And the next set of questions here come from Facebook, also Facebook. Justin G, he's got a couple questions here. First one being, what are your thoughts so far on the reign of Dawson and Wilder as tag team champions? I mean, it's only been a couple weeks, but it's been good. They had a couple successful title defenses, one against the Vaudevillains in the rematch, and they have a Title defense coming up next week against Enzo and Cass, which is cool. I feel like that should be the time to pull the trigger with Enzo and Cass. They've been another team that's been in NXT for years. For years and years and years. Bring them up already. They're over enough. Once they win the belts, after they drop them, they should be promoted. And then from that point, you can give them back to, I don't know, Jordan and Gable or whatever, another team that's ready, but they should be given a reign as NXT Tag Team Champions first, in my opinion. But yeah, Dawson and Wilder, the reign's been good so far, but what I like about them is that they're old school heels. They're different than any other tag team right now, and I don't know, they just feel traditional, they feel old school, and that's what I like about them. I'm an old school fan, and that's what I consider myself as. I know I only started watching a couple years ago in 2008. Kill me now, but I consider myself an old school fan, and being a fan of the 80s wrestling and early 90s and not 95 and beyond. I love the Attitude Era, but I love like the early ages and the early eras of wrestling. That's what they kind of reminded me of. That's why Edge and Christian gave them props on the Stone Cold podcast a couple months ago in early September. So, yeah, they're a good tag team. I don't know if they would get over on the main roster, but I feel like they would definitely get over. There's a bigger chance of them getting over on Raw and SmackDown as opposed to Vaudevillains or Blake and Murphy, like I mentioned. Is at least they have a gimmick that people can connect with as heels, which I think is good. His second question, is it looking like, it is looking like the Vaudevillains are going down the road of becoming heels. Do you think that this is a good idea now to turn them heel, or should Jordan and Gable be the heels, as they will likely be feuding with them? I think it's fine. I mean, I think the Vaudevillains were good baby faces, and that was kind of where they were most over. That's when they won the tag team titles a couple months ago. As heels, I didn't really feel like people cared about them, earlier this year. So I'm hoping they don't. I'm hoping the heel turn doesn't fuck up their momentum like they really have any anyway. I mean, I don't really care too much about the Vaudevillains. They grew on me when they won the NXT tag team titles. But other than that, there's really nothing about them that makes me, that really excites me about them. I think there's a lot of other teams in NXT that I like over them. But that being said, I think it's good because, Gable and Jordan are going to get cheered regardless. I think they're great heels, but they're going to get over in whatever role they're a part of, and people are already cheering them anyway, so you might as well ride that train, keep them baby faces, and turn the Vaudevillains, which I feel like would be more organic anyway. His third question, I kind of felt like Sami Zayn's NXT Championship run was a bit of a letdown, due in fact that he was very short-lived, and there was nothing really special about it except the fact that my favorite wrestler of all time, Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, dominated him and won the championship. What are your thoughts on Zayn's championship run, and are they possibly going to put the title back on him now that he's returning? Again, I would not put it past them to put the championship on them. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he won back the championship, which would be cool. But as I mentioned, I feel like at this point, considering how long he's been down in developmental and he's done everything there is to do, it's time to move to the big leagues of Raw and SmackDown and move up to the main roster. I think he's going to be better utilized in NXT, don't get me wrong, but he's done everything there is to do there. It's time for him to move on. He wants to move on. He had a great match with Cena, and it's time for him to graduate, so to speak, from NXT and just, I'm not going to say to greener pastures, to brighter pastures, because, the main roster sucks right now, but he might be able to, inject some excitement into the main roster. I really can't say. But as far as the title reign went, I wasn't disappointed because I think the story they told was great. I mean, as a mark, in kayfabe-wise, sure, I was disappointed Zayn lost the belt, but as you mentioned, it led to a great reign from Kevin Owens. It led to him being the top heel in the entire promotion for many, many months. So it wasn't really that much of a letdown because Sami Zayn's a guy who was better in chase mode anyway. If he was the champion for many months, up until, as long as Balor's been champion, it wouldn't have been as special, I feel like, because he's a guy who is the ultimate underdog. He's as the t-shirt says, another t-shirt reference here. Let's look at the back of the t-shirt. It says the underdog from the underground. So, I mean, that's the role that he works best in. So I feel like that's where he excels at, and he's better in chase mode and in chasing the championship. That his road to redemption in late 2014 was one of the best goddamn chases for a championship I've ever seen in my life. And the payoff was absolutely amazing, leading to my favorite match of all of 2014, him and Neville at TakeOver R Evolution. I got to watch that again. That is an amazing show. But yeah, I feel like his reign wasn't disappointing just because he's better in chase mode anyway. He wasn't really on TV much because he got injured by Owens and kayfabe in storyline. And when he comes back, they could put the title back on him if they want to. Maybe he would beat Joe for it. I'm not really sure. But at this point, like I said, I would just bring him back to the main roster because he's done everything in NXT. He's already won the championship. Just have him win the IC title on the main roster, which could be even better, arguably. Jeremiah C. with Randy Orton being out of action until at least mid-2017, leading the wrestlers, especially in WWE, need to take lighter workloads and cycle wrestlers in and out with the influx of injuries that have happened recently. You know, I've always been in favor of that. I know logistically it might not be possible because WWE, there's no offseason. I love wrestling, which is great, you know, for us fans, that Raw is always on. It's not like football where it's on only for a couple months of the year. It's always on every Monday night. You know that there's going to be, you know, wrestling on at 8 o'clock on Monday night on USA Network. That said, like you said, you know, it really does lead to exhausted wrestlers. I mean, the whole fucking live event schedule that they work 300 days a year on the road is insane. And I can't say they should lessen that because that's where they make a majority of their money and what else. So they can't lessen the schedule. But what you're proposing, I think, is great. Which I have, that's not the first time I've heard it, but I've always thought it was a good idea to cycle wrestlers in and out, at least, you know, somewhere in their contract, give them 3 months off and so they could take some time off and rehab. Sure, I mean, it would become predictable within the storylines when Randy Orton loses a loser leaves town match at the same time every January, kind of like Jeff Hardy when he gets mysteriously injured every January when TNA goes overseas to England. That's kind of a little bit shady, isn't it? But in all seriousness, I think that with what was I saying? With the schedule that you're proposing, I think it's great. I mean, you don't have to get it that predictable every single time. You can kind of get creative with it, which I know WWE isn't more often than not, which I shouldn't be giving them more credit than is due. But I think it's, in theory, is a really good idea. I just don't know that they would want to take that chance because they need all the wrestlers on one lineup for a live event, especially right now with the roster depth being so bad. Like if you were to give Roman Reigns a couple months off to rehab, you have nobody left. You have like 2 or 3 real stars at the main event level left. So you can't do that. I mean, when we have a roster like the Attitude Era, back then it would have been plausible because you have enough guys where if Triple H is gone for a couple months, you have other people, you know, picking up the slack that are kind of picking up where he left off. So it's not like, oh, the entire roster's in the shitter because Triple H is gone. You know, and I mean, he was gone a couple times due to injury, a lot like Stone Cold. And Undertaker just took time off just to take time off more often than not. And the roster was so, you know, was so grand back when he was, you know, a main event level guy in the 90s and early 2000s that it didn't really matter much that he was gone because you had more star power to kind of fill in that place. And they pushed new stars in his absence. So yeah, again, I think it's good in theory. I just don't know in execution that it would really work because you got to consider all the contract stuff and logistically live event shit and whatever. And just they're so desperate for ratings, they need everyone on board at every single period in time that they can't really afford, especially right now, to have people taking time off. You know, without it being for injury, unless it's an injury, you have to take time off. But other than maybe a John Cena who can get away with it just because he's filming a TV show, but if it's like a Dean Ambrose, they're not going to give him 3 months off to rehab his injuries if they need him right now with the roster depth being so bad. So maybe when the roster depth starts to pick up a little bit more, then you can start to see more stars taking time off voluntarily. But until then, they need to continue doing what they're doing. I don't think it's not smart, absolutely, because we've seen people pass away as a result of it. Their bodies are beat up by 40, which is ridiculous, not even half their life. They're spending the second half of their life, if not more, in pain, which is awful. You know, you have to take more safety precautions and go to the extra measures to protect the performers. WWE says that. Do they really mean it? I think so, but I could see where some people would say that they only care about their image like any other company. That's another argument for another day. But again, I like the idea, but in execution, I don't know if it would actually be realistic, especially right now. At RJ Marceau, RJ_Marceau from the Twitter, he asked this question last week, but he said, how should WWE book Jack Swagger to see him as a viable opponent to Del Rio? I mean, you and I have talked about this before, RJ, that Swagger, I mean, I like Swagger, the guy's just not over and people don't care. It's not helping that with guys like Sheamus and Jack Swagger, that they're not giving them any wins on Raw. They're just in fucking segments. They're not winning any matches. When was the last time Jack Swagger won a match? I'm not counting his match against Del Rio on SmackDown where he won via fucking disqualification. Before that, when did he ever win? When has he won a match on Raw? Please tell me that. I honestly don't remember until the last time they pushed him, maybe 2 years ago. Since then, I can't remember the last time he ever did anything of note on Monday Night Raw other than feuding with Del Rio. So they need to start giving these guys wins, giving them direction, character development. Why is he going after Alberto Del Rio? They're giving him a few promos here and there, but by and large, he's just barely on the show. Like when they cut the Del Rio feud short for a couple weeks, he wasn't even in the goddamn tournament. Kalisto was in the tournament. Titus O'Neil was in the tournament over Jack Swagger, a former World Heavyweight Champion. You know, they're not doing this guy any favors, so... Right now, no one gives a shit about him. They're not going to care about the match or the pay-per-view. RJ and I are going to be there. I won't. I mean, I'll do the We the People chant. RJ and I agreed on that, but the match itself, I'm sure, will be nothing amazing. A lot like Jack Swagger versus Rusev at the same pay-per-view last year for that same championship went over like a fart in church because no one gave a shit about the match because they had already blown through the feud over the summer, and Jack Swagger by that point was a glorified loser, you know? So anyway, his second question is the stacking of the odds against Roman Reigns over the top. Guy can't win with 3 partners, but wins on SmackDown if you missed it. Reigns beat the entire League of Nations on SmackDown. 4-on-1. Via countout, albeit, but he still beat them. 4-on-1. And he couldn't win when he had 3 or 4 other partners on Raw. This is what I'm talking about. The logic with these stables, with just... WWE storytelling right now makes no sense. They put their eggs, they put too many eggs in one basket with Roman Reigns. And that's all they focus on is just Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the star child. He's the future of this company. That's all grand and good. I like Roman Reigns, but when you're not focusing on anyone else, you're not focusing on Dean Ambrose or any of these other baby faces or heels, no one's going to give a shit when Roman Reigns gets hurt. When Reigns gets hurt, you're fucked. You are fucking fucked. Because you have no one else to take his place because you've been spending all this time building up this one guy, a lot like Seth Rollins. I love Seth Rollins, but they spent way too much time on him and not building up other heels at the same time during his championship reign. Who else did they build up? Wyatt is a loser. Who else do we have? Sheamus is a fucking loser. The entire League of Nations are a bunch of losers. The only reason, I'm starting to get convinced, the only reason they put that stable together was to make Roman Reigns look strong, which, like CM Punk said in the podcast last year, was the whole intent of their TLC, coincidentally enough, 2 years ago. The TLC handicap match with Roman Reigns, 3-on-1. They had to make Roman look strong. Okay, you can make him look strong, but what about everyone else? What about the heels? What about Dean Ambrose? What about these other baby faces and heels that you're not paying attention to? That's why the only reason why the League of Nations exists, the only reason why the League of Losers exists, is to make Roman Reigns look strong. I'm fully convinced that's the case, because otherwise they're just booking them. Right now they're already dead in the water, because all the guys are fucking losers. But until they can start booking them properly and give me and everyone else a reason to care about them, because again, I like the idea of a stable, but until they give us a reason to care, I'm not going to give a shit. Last week's main event was just poop-worthy. I was sitting on my hands, didn't care for a whole half hour, because I have no reason to believe that the baby faces will win. And we've seen handicap. Just not even the idea of Reigns, the odds being stacked against him. Not even that, but just the whole story of that has been done to fucking death, especially in the last 2 years with the rise of the Authority. Because you know the baby faces will never win. The Solomonster just talked about this on his podcast just yesterday, and I listened to him talk about it, so I don't want to repeat it. But the baby faces never win. And the whole story, the whole handicap match concept has been done to death over the past 2 years. It's sickening. We got one on Raw last week. We got one on SmackDown. We get one almost every single week, almost as frequently as we get 6-man tag team matches. That's all we get. Handicap matches and 6-man tag team matches. Get creative, people. Have a gauntlet match every once in a while. Have a tag team match where if you pin one guy, you get a title shot, but if you pin the other guy, I don't know. Get creative with the stipulations, WWE. We don't need to see the whole, can he overcome the odds stick, which someone else asked about, which I'll get to shortly, but just the whole idea of, can he overcome the odds in the 3-on-1 situation has been done to death. It's a good idea when it's done sparingly. Not every single week. By that point, people just get sick of it and just tune out because they don't want to see another handicap match for the millionth time. Next question from Digga the Boss. I know it's sabotaged backwards, so I don't really know how to pronounce that. But his question was, do you think with the sudden social media fame that Joey Ryan has had would be a good addition to NXT? I loved him in TNA. You know, oddly enough, I've never really been a huge Joey Ryan fan. On the contrary, I didn't love him in TNA. I thought he was okay. I thought they wasted the guy. He was involved in a fucking comedy feud with Al Snow and the Bromance or something awful for a while. Maybe Eric Young. I don't even know. Robbie T, maybe. He was doing something really stupid for a couple months in late 2012, early 2013. They wasted the guy, and then he left. I don't think just because he is popular right now. And that video is hilarious, by the way. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but the crotch grab video from Japan or whatever it was fucking hilarious. You can check it out on YouTube. I know it was trending on Facebook for a while, not just for me because I look at wrestling posts and it was this is what you might like or whatever. It was trending on Facebook for everybody, so a lot of people saw it. He was on Sam Roberts' podcast or on his radio show last week, so he's getting a lot of mainstream attention right now, which is great. The guy is very good, and he's always been very good. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but he's a good worker. I mean, I know their looks are a lot similar. I would take Dalton Castle in WWE over Joey Ryan. I think Dalton Castle is more entertaining than he is, but he's still a good worker. I don't think WWE is interested. Otherwise, they would have brought him in years ago. I mean, the same thing could be said for Austin Aries. They had the chance to sign him, and they didn't in 2011, and he went to TNA and had a great run there. So, I mean, there's a chance, but I don't think Joey Ryan's the guy where if they brought him into NXT that he's going to, like a Balor, like a Prince Devitt or an Tommy or a Joe or a Storm or people worldwide know him other than this, brief stint of fame that he has had on social media, like you mentioned, where it's going to be a huge, asset to NXT. He would be a good fit for the promotion, but I don't think it's like, oh, I'm going to go buy a ticket to the show. I mean, again, it really goes back to, oh, NXT's in town, I'm going to go. It's not like, oh, Balor's in town, I'm going to go. But the reason they're bringing in the people that they are, like the Balors, like the Joes, like the James Storms, is because people are familiar with them. It's going to help them add more star power to the product. Joey Ryan, other than this brief stint of fame, like I mentioned, that he has currently, doesn't have much star power. Again, he'd be a good fit for the brand, but I think at this point and at his age, I just don't think it's going to happen. He's a good worker. He's got a good character. I'm not holding out hope, though, that he's going to get signed by NXT. And his second question, if Goldberg was to have one last match at WrestleMania 32, who would be the best option for him from WWE? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, he's not wrestling at WrestleMania. I know you're saying if, but in talking to him, cheap plug, the interview on Wrestle Rant Radio from a couple weeks ago, also the article is currently up on Bleacher Report, he has no interest in wrestling at WrestleMania whatsoever. Based off what he said, the sound of his voice, he's not really, he'll do the Legends of Wrestling deals every once in a while, but other than that, he's not, enamored with wrestling right now. He's not even watching the product. I'm sure he doesn't care. I'm sure he would wrestle a match if WWE threw the money in their face, but even then, he's not a fan of the politics that go on. He didn't like his last run, so I don't see it happening, or at least not this year. But if he was to wrestle a match at WrestleMania 32, who would be the best option? That was a stumper, because I was going up and down the roster, and I'm thinking, wow, a lot of these guys just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make for a money match. And that's the only reason why Goldberg would come back if he was, A, going to win. And, probably. Unless they had him lose, but if they gave him a whole chunk of change, then maybe. But he's not going to come back to lose. And 2, it's got to be with a main event level guy. They're not going to put him in the ring with fucking, Ryback, which I know was like a dream match a couple years ago. But at this point, with Ryback's momentum kind of stalling out from 2012, and it just wouldn't work, and the match would probably suck too, so not Ryback. It has to be with a main event level guy. It has to be with an established guy. I hate doing veteran versus veteran matches, but it would have to be. It'd have to be a guy like a Brock Lesnar. I don't know if you want to see that match again. I personally don't, but considering he's good friends with Lesnar and also Rock, but he's faced those two guys before, so I wouldn't do either one of those matches, but if you wanted to, whatever. Roman Reigns is the only fresh guy from the current roster that would make sense, given their current, their similar football backgrounds. I could see Goldberg being a fan of his. Not currently, he doesn't even watch the product. I don't even think he knows who Roman Reigns is, but if there's anyone in the current roster, it'd probably be Roman Reigns or John Cena. That would be a money match, I guess, too, but again, Goldberg would have to win. Undertaker, Batista, I don't know how good the matches would be, but those are really the only money matches I could see Goldberg having that he would come back for, realistically. At Franco _47NM, his questions were, his only question was, are great things coming for Stardust? If not, why don't you bring Cody Rhodes back instead of being misused? Why they don't bring back Cody Rhodes, I just don't think they have anything for him. I know that's really kind of an old cliche phrase in wrestling, creative has nothing for you, but I legitimately think creative has nothing for him right now. It's not a matter of bringing back Cody just because Stardust isn't working out. One, I think he enjoys being Stardust, which is why he didn't come back as Cody right after his father passed away. It's like he said in the blog post, he felt like he'd be capitalizing off the fame, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I respect his opinion, and it's his choice, but anyway. I think there's more potential in Cody Rhodes. But even if he was to go back to being Cody Rhodes right now, he'd still probably be on Superstars because, again, creative is nothing for him. Until they start making him a top priority again, he's going to be, wrestling on Superstars and on main event with the fucking Ascension and whatever, which is a fine stable, but Cody Rhodes is so much more better than that. So much better than that. And that being said, he would just be a loser. His place in the card would probably not change just because Cody Rhodes returned. So, I would keep him as Stardust until they have a meaningful time and opportunity to bring that Cody Rhodes character back. At Reborn Again's got a couple questions. First one being, should WWE go to 10 or even 9, or I almost said 9.99. Should WWE go to 10 or even 9 pay-per-views a year to make them seem more special? That's always something I've been in favor of. I don't think it's going to happen, just because of pay-per-view contracts and all the revenue they make from these pay-per-views. I know they're on the network now, but I'm sure they make a lot more money from these pay-per-views than we might think. So it's not going to go away. They're not going to reduce the number of pay-per-views, but I would be more in favor of that. We don't need to go back to only the big 4 every year. Maybe some people would be in agreement with that, but that goes with the current state that Raw is in. You cannot absolutely not have only 4 pay-per-views a year, because those months in between would be treated like shit. Again, in theory, it sounds like a good idea, but in execution, WWE would ruin it. So, that being said, again, if they booked it properly, then 10 to 9 pay-per-views a year would be good. I would take out fucking, the February pay-per-views are pointless. I would just go Rumble to WrestleMania. Maybe take out, then you have, April, May, June, July. Maybe take out the June pay-per-view, which are, again, not always great. So I would take out the June show, and then maybe the October. I would take out Hell in a Cell because I think that pay-per-view is pointless too. It's, sometimes a good show. I thought this past year's installment was good. But the whole concept of a pay-per-view surrounding around Hell in a Cell, I think is just so stupid. Have the match be its own entity and don't waste it on a show. Don't waste it on a pay-per-view. Oh, it's the end of October again. It's time for Hell in a Cell. Just bring it back when it's worth it, when it means something. So I would probably get rid of the February pay-per-view. I'd keep Money in the Bank. Maybe get rid of fucking Payback or something. I think that's kind of a pointless show. It's been good for the most part, but it's usually pointless. And Hell in a Cell too, I'd get rid of. So that I guess it kind of brings us to 9 to 10 pay-per-views a year. I think it's like 12 shows a year currently, maybe 13. I think it's 12 though. I'm not counting like Beast in the East and the MSG special. I think I'm just counting the actual pay-per-views here. But a second question: could we see Austin Aries debut at NXT TakeOver London? Who would you have him face? Is it a possibility? Definitely. After he was at the tapings just recently, I thought he was going to wrestle like a la James Storm, but he did not. But they could have been just in talks, so I would love to see him at NXT TakeOver London. That'd be a great surprise. It's a live show. It's not like it's taped and that would ruin the surprise. It will be live at albeit at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll be watching. I don't know about you, but I got finals off for that week, so that Wednesday I'm not doing anything. I'll be there at 3 o'clock, ready to watch on the network with RJ. Ready to order some food, baby. But Austin Aries, it's definitely a possibility we could see him in London at TakeOver. Who would I have him face for his first match? There's not many people that aren't booked for the card. I mean, you can put him against a guy like Ty Dillinger. He's like the designated jobber and the designated guy who people debut against, like CJ Parker was before he left the company. Probably Dillinger, who would probably have a really good match with too. Either him or Rhino, who hasn't been seen in a couple months since he lost the match to Baron Corbin, and those guys, I'm sure, have worked together before, either in TNA or in Ring of Honor or whatever. They could probably have a really good match. So there's definitely a chance that we could see him in London. And as far as who I would have him face, either Rhino or Ty Dillinger seem like the best bets. And his third question, which I thought was great, what fandom has given you the most hate for your opinions, if any? I.e. the Bellas, Naomi, Reigns fans, etc. I don't think he's limiting to those just 3 choices. I think he was just providing examples. But that's such a great question. I mean, I think I've answered that before, but it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe not timely, but it's so modern, I guess, because that happens to everyone, not just me, but to not more me recently, but I see a lot of people every single week where someone says something bad about Naomi and one of her fans will chase after them, or especially the Bella Twins fans. I've said this before, I do not hate the Bellas, or at least I did at one point. They've kind of grown on me a little bit. I like Nikki more than Bray, but I don't hate anyone, except maybe the Big Show. And I'm sure there's not many diehard Big Show fans who are going to come after me on Twitter like the Bella Twins fans do. But I've told this story before on the show when in February when I went to one of those live events, and I think it was voted that the Bellas get to stay at ringside. I took a picture of them, like, what is this? And I got not thousands, but I got multitude of tweets from Bella Twins fans saying you're a piece of shit. Why shouldn't they be allowed at ringside? I hate you. Why do you hate the Bellas? You're a hater. It's like, calm down, people. It's wrestling. I love fucking The Miz. Everyone hates The Miz. I'm the lone misfit left. I don't go around replying to people who hate The Miz. I don't care. Who cares? It's wrestling, people. It's entertainment. I know we spend so much time talking about it, but at the end of the day, it's entertainment. And I hate maybe their characters. I would never hate Bella Twins, the people. I don't hate any wrestlers as people. Sometimes the characters, but that's heel heat. That's what we're supposed to do. But anyway, of the factions of the fandoms that you mentioned, you know, maybe even including Cena fans, which I've also gotten my fair share of hate from too over the years. Again, not so much recently because I kind of watch what I say. I don't, say I hate the Bella Twins anymore because I don't. But, just the response from people are just not even annoying, more so than they are hysterical because people just waste time. Just like, why do you hate the Bellas? Why do you hate Roman Reigns and Naomi? Well, I'm sure I've seen people shit on her fan base. Not too much. I don't know why, but I like Naomi. I'm not, all over her, but I wish I was. Just kidding. But I love Naomi. I'm not, her fan base is, I have no idea. So anyway, moving forward with the Bella Twins, I'd probably go with the Bella Twins I've gotten the most hate from. Again, probably more so earlier this year and last year. Like their fans are very passionate, which is great, which is awesome. I'm a passionate William Regal fan. I've seen a lot of people shit on him. I've seen a lot of people fucking shit on CM Punk. He's a very polarizing character. And people like, I fucking hate CM Punk. He's the shit. He's the worst in the world. I don't care. Good for you. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But don't expect me to, you can have your opinion for shitting on somebody. That's perfectly fine. I just don't care. You can hate who you hate. You can like who you like. We don't all like the same people. Just get over it. The next question comes from @CodyCollier37. What do you think is the most underrated WWE TLC pay-per-view since it debuted in 2009, and why? My top 3 favorite TLC pay-per-views are not only my favorite TLC events, but just my favorite pay-per-views, period. Not top 3, but easily my top 10. 2010, 2011, and 2012, back-to-back-to-back, were all awesome. I thought those 3 shows were amazing. Of those 3, I'd probably go with 2010. I think 2011 is remembered as the night that, Daniel Bryan cashed in Money in the Bank, Ryder won a belt, Punk won a belt. It was like IWC. It was like a love letter to the IWC. And then 2012, you had the debut of The Shield. You had a great Cena and Ziggler match. So I think a lot of people recognize how great that show was. 2010, I feel like, is underrated. It was top to bottom a very, very good show. You had a great TLC Fatal 4-Way Ladder match with Edge, Kane, Mysterio, and Del Rio. An okay chairs match between Cena and Barrett. Wasn't amazing. I would have closed off the show with the TLC match, but the chairs match was okay. But the rest of the card was really good. A good tables, Divas Tag Team Tables match, which was completely, new and different and something fresh. That was great. Sheamus and John Morrison was amazing in the ladder match. The Triple Threat Intercontinental Title ladder match was great too in the opener. So I would say that one's underrated. I don't see a lot of love for that show, and I don't know why, because I think it's a really, really good show. Again, maybe I'm just biased because I love that show so much, but I feel like of all the TLC shows, it's definitely underrated given that stacked card, which I thought really was very well delivered. All right, continuing along with the questions here, I don't have much time left before I have to go to class, so I apologize if I'm not as in-depth with your questions as I usually am, so I apologize. But moving forward here, @E13A, his question was, I've seen an argument that Kevin Owens should not be pushed hard due to his long indie history of leaving his health a liability. Examples, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, Cesaro, all of whom are out right now. What's your take on a push to someone like him being risky? That's a great point, but just because they have a long history of them, don't use that as an excuse to not give the guy a world championship just because he has a history of being crazy on the indies. So far, he hasn't done anything really crazy in WWE, so I definitely see where you're coming from. That's a valid argument, but I wouldn't use that as an excuse to not push him. I could see Daniel Bryan. I'm not a fan of the idea, but it really sucks that because Daniel Bryan's been hurt so much, or at least the injuries he's had have been so severe, that they don't want to push him towards, above a certain level or towards the main event because they fear he might get hurt again. That I understand. It sucks to admit, but that I understand. That argument with Owens isn't as understandable. Like, again, I get where you're coming from, but you shouldn't use that as an excuse to not give the guy a world championship. You would be neglecting guys like everyone who came from the independent scene who probably deserves a world championship. Daniel Bryan, Rollins have been world champion, but they had to vacate it because of a freak accident. I know Rollins' injury has been built up over time, he said, but other than that, it was a freak accident that could happen to anyone. Cena's been hurt. Should we not give him the championship? I know he's the man, but same thing with Randy Orton. The guy's had 12 shoulder surgeries. Should we not give him a world championship anymore? I mean, at this point, probably not, but before he got hurt, he had a championship as early as 2014, or as latest as 2014. So I wouldn't use that as an excuse because that can be really made for anybody. I know not just the indie guys, but guys like Cena and Orton who did not have a long history on the indies have probably been a lot more injury prone than the people I just mentioned, and Daniel Bryan, Rollins, Zayn, and Cesaro. The next question from @Swagzio: when should Kane return and who should he feud with? I thought he was going to come back to feud with the Wyatt family. I mean, inside with the Dudley Boys, but I like the direction they're taking instead. So if he's not going to come back for TLC, and at this point we only have 6 days, so I don't figure he will. But probably bring him back in the Rumble, maybe have one last hurrah on the road to WrestleMania, a lot like Taker, because at this point, what else is there for him to do? A lot like Taker, he's going to be hanging it up soon. I feel like there's a lot more for Taker to do than Kane. Kane, he's feuded with everybody. He's held every championship. He's done it all. He's got the mask again. Just have him retire WrestleMania. I know that's probably not in the cards, but I'd have him retire. I don't know when he will return, but like I said, maybe in the Rumble, he'd be a good Rumble return because that's his match. 15 years removed from his record-setting Rumble, so maybe have that, have him take out a few people and compete. And was he in the Rumble this year? I think he was, wasn't he? He's been in every Rumble except for like 2012, I think. Was he in the Rumble in 2015? What was he doing this year? He was a part of the Authority, wasn't he? I don't even fucking remember. Oh, man, it's going to bother me now. What was Kane doing earlier this year? He was with the Authority for a while. I believe he was with the Authority, but did he have the mask at that point? No, he didn't have the mask. I don't think he was in the Rumble. He was in the Rumble, yes, because I remember him and Big Show were eliminating a lot of people towards the end. Okay, I'm sorry. Man, Kane has had so many gimmicks over the years, I completely forget about certain chunks of his career. But anyway, maybe just have him return to the Rumble, like again, 15 years removed from his record-setting Rumble, and one last hurrah before he hangs it up, hopefully sooner rather than later. The second question, who should win the Royal Rumble this year? I've said this before, my only 2 picks right now are Ambrose and Lesnar. After what I've been hearing, maybe Kevin Owens. That's a long shot. But Owens, Ambrose, and Lesnar are really the only 3 people that make sense. I could see Roman Reigns. I don't want to fucking see that again. People are going to shit all over it. WWE, don't make the same mistake 3 years in a row. Wouldn't put it past them because they made the same mistake with Roman Reigns this year. So I thought they would learn their lesson from Batista's win in 2014. They didn't. So I could very well see them having Reigns win again. But that should not happen. So yeah, Ambrose, Lesnar, or Owens. I'm sure the crowd would pop for and would be content with winning the Rumble, and they would not shit all over it. And his third question, should Rob Van Dam join the Dudley Boys and Tommy Dreamer against the Wyatt family? Definitely. Either Rob Van Dam or Rhino, a lot of people have suggested as well. He's already in NXT, so why not? Either one would be cool. I'll be there, so I'll mark out for either one of them. I've never seen Rhino live. I've seen Rob Van Dam live a few times. But either one would be awesome. I guess we'll find out more tonight on Raw. Because Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray Dudley, teased something on Twitter yesterday saying that he made an extreme call and they're going to be at Raw tonight. So we'll have to wait and see, but I'm pretty sure we'll find out tonight, and it should be either RVD or Rhino. Next question from Scarlet One. Their question was, do you think the way John Cena and now Roman Reigns gets pushed has damaged drama in WWE? When the can he overcome the odds story is imposed, the end is either yes or he would have, but the odds cheated. Definitely, like I said before, the whole story period of can he overcome the odds has been done to death so many times over the last couple of years that I'm just sick of it. Especially with guys like Cena and Roman Reigns because it gets way too predictable. So I don't know if it has damaged drama in WWE. I'm not going to say it's damaged the product. But it's damaged storytelling and not coming up with more creative ways to tell a story. I'm all for a good chase, but can he overcome the odds storyline has been done to death. I'm so sick of the fucking handicap matches and all this other stupid shit that comes along with it. So it definitely has been done to death, and a lot of people have just lost interest at this point. A matter of fact, their second question was, are drama and consequence a lost art in WWE? Like someone who retires and comes back within a year, someone who's fired and forces Let's see, let me reread that. Someone who retires comes back within a year. Someone who's fired forces everyone to rehire them. And Sting helping Dolph Ziggler get rid of the Authority, enter the Authority, returning, and everything is all reset. It's all booking decisions that make anything that happens unable and untimely and ultimately don't matter. Yes, in so many words, absolutely. I've said this before, but when you do stuff, the stipulations, like the Authority's gone if they lose, but they're back a month later, people just don't take the stipulations seriously. When they feel like they don't matter as an audience, they're going to stop watching. So definitely, it's a lost art and a very a damaged art in WWE, and where they have these great stipulations, but they go back on them. I'm very happy that guys like Shawn Michaels have not come back from retirement, whereas guys like Ric Flair have, and many other people like that who just come back a year later after getting fired. And it's ridiculous. It does not make for good storytelling. People just stop taking the stipulations seriously, and they just won't buy the show. Oh, the Authority's going to be done for good this time. They weren't done for good the last time, so why should I buy the show to see if they're done or not? You know what I mean? Their third question: Charlotte turning heel is a good move, but is anyone worried about the logic behind it? She cheated against her only friend in a friendly match, got angry on SmackDown by pulling Brie Bella out of a submission to cause a disqualification. What's the end game? I don't know what the end game is. Maybe she's just jealous of Becky. I don't know where they're going with it, but I am happy Charlotte's a heel. Enough said, just because I feel like she'll be more natural in that role, and she won't feel like she's forced as a babyface. And that makes Becky the only babyface in the division. That's another issue, but we'll get to that when we get to that. At Sean Marcus, their final question before I get to Sean's question. To end a long series of questions on a positive note, what are Finn Balor's 3 best matches since joining NXT last year? The 3 that come to mind: versus Neville at the February TakeOver show, the one against Owens at Beast in the East, and the other one against Owens at the TakeOver in Brooklyn, the latter match. At Sheen Markistic, what do you see? Who do you see winning the Rumble? Already said Ambrose, Lesnar, or Kevin Owens. That's a long shot, but any one of those 3 guys. Ambrose is a long shot too, but probably Lesnar makes the most sense. Reigns, I just don't want to see that again. Push repackage, release Kalisto, Del Rio, and Stardust. Push Kalisto, I feel like he's a lot of potential. He just needs the machine behind him. Repackage Stardust into Cody Rhodes. The Stardust thing has overworn its welcome, in my opinion, or worn out its welcome. And then release Del Rio. The guy's done it all. I don't even know why he was brought back anyway. I know the whole Latino audience thing. They need a face of the Latino audience, but I just don't care. I don't care. I mean, I was happy when he left the first time albeit under awful circumstances, but he already did it all. People didn't care. He had a great run in Lucha Underground as El Patron, but so far in WWE, since he came back, he's just not doing anything for me. And the final question from @BigBird432, since it's been 2 years since the WWE unified the 2 world titles, do you think it was the right thing to do? I think it's made the World Championship, the lone world title, more prestigious as a result. But at the same time, it's cost a lot of people. Many different opportunities to become world champion, like a Cody Rhodes or a Wade Barrett or a Ryback or an Ambrose. I think Ambrose will be world champion anyway. But a lot of the other guys I just mentioned, Cesaro, it's made out that they can probably never become world champion. Or a Dolph Ziggler, I don't think he'll ever become world champion again with only 1 world championship. But then again, the case can also be made that when we did have 2 world championships, towards the end, the belt didn't mean anything. After Edge retired, I would say the belt meant absolutely nothing. And people didn't give a shit. So just because Wade Barrett's world champion doesn't really matter, because that belt is on the level of like a fucking IC championship, it doesn't matter. So it might be for the best that we only have 1 world championship, especially with no brand split. So anyway, if they can make that belt mean something again, then I think it'd be cool if they brought it back and they can help out those guys I just mentioned. But only if it meant something, and I don't think it will. So bringing back 2 world titles at this point in time would not help. I'm writing a whole article about this for What Culture. It kind of contradicts what I'm writing in that article, but I just think that the world title towards the end of its run was just basically a prop, and no one cared. Del Rio's reign did not mean anything. So what does it really mean if Cody Rhodes is World Heavyweight Champion if that belt means absolutely nothing? It's like David Arquette holding the WCW Championship. What does it really mean when that belt is just beat to shit? You know what I mean? Anyway. So those are my answers to your guys' great questions. Thank you as always. You can send in on the Twitter by tweeting me at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself. Be sure to leave a comment down below in the comment section. Be sure to include your comment in next week's video. I'm all out of breath. I got to go to class, so I got to hurry this up, so I apologize. Have an awesome week, guys. I'll be at TLC on Sunday, which is pretty amazing. Stay tuned for WrestleRant videos throughout the week, WrestleRant radio excerpts of the video blog on Friday with my top 5 favorite WWE TLC matches in the event's history. A lot of great stuff coming up. I know Raw is not exciting the masses right now, but I'm pumped for TLC, TakeOver, Star Wars, and Christmas. These next couple weeks are going to be fucking awesome. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.